Hi guys, welcome to another Lockdown Live. I'm starting to really enjoy these actually. It started as a little bit of a weird thing, recording on video technology and being live on Facebook and YouTube, but actually it's becoming quite fun. So I've got another guest, Stuart MacFarlane, who I've known for quite a few years, works at the Arsenal. Is a photographer, but I think is one of the leading photographers in the industry. I mean, you just have to look at his following on Twitter and stuff like that to know that he's well loved. So I want to talk to him a little bit about his role and what motivates him and stuff like that. So Stuart, welcome. How are you? How's the lockdown been treating you?
Yeah, I can't complain really. I'm still doing a bit of photography, but at home quite a lot of the time. So spending a bit of time with family, but no, all good, thank you.
But from kind of having every weekend and sometimes midweek booked out for football and all that, if you're at a game on Saturday, you're obviously working the Sunday editing and you're doing all sorts. It must be weird just to have those weekends free at the moment.
I think it's the same for everyone really, but I suppose my job can be 6-7 days a week. So to go from that to going on a 5-day a week and then even sometimes, I might only be working 3 it's quite tough, because I've been doing it for 30 years, missing weekends. And I still love my job. So, it's a sort of big hole at the moment, but hopefully we'll get back on track quite soon.
Just very briefly, for people that don't know you, just explain a little bit about your role and how long you've sort of been at the club for and stuff like that, very briefly.
So I'm the chief photographer at Arsenal. I've been staff here since 2001, but I did a lot of freelance work for Arsenal from 1990 onwards. So I mainly work around the first team, but there's 2 of us, myself and David Price. We cover every aspect of the football club. We did all the construction pictures of Emirates. We work for every department, community, commercial, and all our sponsors. So it's quite a busy job for us.
Yeah. So what's an average day for you? So I'm not thinking match days, but I'm just thinking a normal day. How does that kind of go?
Well, it would be, if I'm not covering matches, I'll be doing training session in the morning. So I'll arrive at London Colney at 9. Just go through, make sure all my gear's ready, shoot training, which is generally 2 hours, and then an edit, which is a 2-hour edit and sending images out. And then that's the day done really. But we have requests coming in across the department for various different images and photographic requests. So that's that's my sort of normal day. And then we have maybe 2 or 3 office days a week, which is general office admin, which, as you know, I'm not very good at.
And when was it that you sort of thought you want to be a photographer? Was there a moment early in your career? Were you playing around with a portable camera? I'm not saying you're old or nothing like that, but were you playing around with one of those portable cameras and you just thought, this is actually really cool? What was that sort of light bulb moment?
Well, there was probably 2 really. Where I lived in our second house, our next door neighbour worked for Kodak, and I was only maybe 6 or 7 years old. So he had a studio in his house, and he'd photograph all the kids and all the family portraits in the street. So I'd sit there and watch him take pictures and sit in the darkroom as he watched him process the film and print and stuff like that. And I sort of fell in love with it there, but never thought anything of it. And then I went to I did photography at school, but I mainly wanted to paint and draw. So I wanted to be an artist, which, as you well know, is quite tricky to get into. Didn't really go down that avenue. And then my mum pushed me into further education and sort of fell into a photographic course, really. And it was only really towards the end of it where I thought, actually, I might be quite good at this. And one of the lecturers saw an advert in a photographic magazine for a black and white printer for a sports photo agency in Islington called Colour Sport. And I went for the interview, and then 3 or 4 months later, it actually was 3 or 4 months later, they phoned me and said, we'll offer you the job. I didn't ask what the money was, but I just thought, this is for me.
And what's pressure in your role? Is it I guess there's different types. There's that whole not missing a moment and stuff, but then is editing to deadlines? What's pressure in your role?
I think the pressure is, in this sort of photography, is you only get one chance to get your picture. You can't reenact anything. You can't you know, it's there and that's it, and then it's gone. And I've missed lots of great pictures, and that's the pressure. But I'm lucky now that I don't really suffer from the pressure that much, because you know that you've got to be calm most of the time to try and get the pictures you want. I mean, I remember when Arsenal beat Tottenham in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, Tony Adams scored the goal, and I was at the other end, and I was celebrating, fell back off my stool onto the grass. All the other sort of senior photographers were looking at me, and I thought, no, this is maybe I should start behaving myself now. So I leave my celebrations. I celebrate in my head, and but you have to remain calm all the time. But there is pressure. Cup finals, there's massive amounts of pressure, because you have to get the right pictures. You have to try and capture everything. You know, the editing is relatively simple after that. You know what you've got. But that's really the pressure. The pressure is the in-match stuff, really.
Because I'm thinking just wider, because there'll be people who watch this who maybe aren't into football or certainly not into Arsenal and stuff, and that's obviously fine. But, you know, I think about kind of wedding photographers as well and stuff. You think you've only got that one moment. The bride and groom the bride's not going to do her walk again. If you miss that or get the wrong angle, the bride's not going to be happy. So I guess in all sorts of photography, there's pressure. Yeah,
it's and you're dealing with away from the match stuff, when you're dealing with, you know, doing kit shoots with players and stuff like that, and there's quite a bit of pressure there, because you have to develop a rapport with the players. They have to respect you, because if they don't respect you, then you've got no chance of working with them. Sometimes when we shoot the players in a new kit at the start of the season, we've got 14 or 15 different poses they need to do, and some look a little bit odd because they're for maybe retail or something like that. So you have to, that's probably the other pressurized part of the job, is developing connections with the players, new people that you meet. You might be language difficulties, but you've got to try and get around that to get the job done in a limited amount of time that you have. So that's one of the toughest bits to do, really.
Yeah. And obviously everyone has highs and everyone has lows. Is there any particular highs that you've had, and it could be just great images you've taken, or you had that real pressure moment of a cup final, but you felt you delivered it well and were really pleased with the outcome?
I think one of my highs was, it was the first day that I was full-time at Arsenal. It was like a dream job. I'm sure everyone has a company or a job they'd love to do. And I remember coming into work in the morning, and I was wearing a suit, believe it or not, and I sat in my shared office with our press office. And at lunchtime, I got my packed lunch and I sat out in the stands at the old Highbury ground on the east stand in the upper tier, and the sun was out and the ground staff were cutting the pitch, and I thought, this is it, you know, this is what I've always wanted, you know, and that will always stick with me, that feeling. And then really, I suppose, I've been here so long, it's really when you've won something big and you've managed to document it, and you look back and you say, right, okay, I did a good job there, which is satisfying. But I have to say that however many games I've photographed in my career, I've never been 100% happy with what I've got. I always feel I could have got something else, so I tend not to look too far back, because games remind me of failures. They don't remind me of complete success. So I'm always trying to better myself on that side.
How do you better yourself? How do you learn from it? So when you've looked back and you think, yeah, I wasn't quite pleased with this, how do you, because it's in your field, you've got so many uncontrollables there, you know, it's people are moving, environments are moving. It's hard for you. If you had time and you could set everyone up as you wanted them, I'm sure it'd be fine, but you can't do that. So how do you learn?
Well, in the match situation, you're right. There's so many variables, and a lot of it's luck. And if something happens in front of you, you should get it. There are you know, certain lenses that you might use and certain lenses you wouldn't use, and that all just comes with experience. I mean, bettering yourself really is maybe the stuff we do in the studio with players and kit and catalogue shoots and stuff like that, where I'm always looking to see what other photographers do and how they shoot and how they set their studio lights up. So I like to look at what other people do, and I think if now, even though I've been here for 30 years, if I think that I can't get taught anything, then I mean, that's absolutely absurd. So I try and learn from other photographers, and then try different lighting techniques. That's the stuff I can control. The on-pitch stuff is stuff that's completely out of my control.
I think that's a good tip, isn't it? Because I mean, we do that in our field. We look at what other companies are doing and stuff. You know, you back your own ability and you back your talent, but no one's arrogant enough to think they know it all. So it's kind of, I think that learning from people is always important, isn't it? Just keeping yourself fresh. And with highs come lows. Has there been any particular moments that you can think of where you just think, this hasn't gone well, or I just don't want the ground to swallow me because I'm not happy with this?
Well, before I worked for Arsenal, I worked for, as I said, a sports photo agency, and I did a lot of rugby union. And 1994, I went with the England rugby team to South Africa, which was an unbelievable experience. And on the last game of the tour, we all shot. It was before digital was sort of invented. So you shot the game, got into the media room and started to hand develop my films, and realised that I'd completely messed it up and ruined virtually every roll of film that I'd shot from the game. And I was absolutely distraught. I was crying. I had to phone my boss back in London and explain it to him. And, he was absolutely brilliant. He's like, don't worry about it. It wasn't the most important game you'll ever cover. So that's always stuck with me. And after that, I thought, this is it. I'm never going to make it in this job. And it was a real, it was a real slap in the face for me. And I was, at that time, I did consider just thinking, this is it. I can't do this. Too much pressure really for me. And I didn't think I was good enough to do it.
So do you think it was that phone call that made you think, actually, no, this happens? Like, because you said you doubted it and you weren't sure if it was for you and pressure, but was it that phone call that made the difference, that actually you thought, no, I am going to continue?
In a way, I thought he was going to sack me, so it made the difference because I kept my job. But the difference was when I first started working at the agency, photographers are very selfish people ultimately, and they only think about their own work. And I was looking for a bit of guidance of the senior photographers, and I didn't really get too much there. So I felt like I was a little bit on my own. And then bumped into a guy called Mike King, a photographer who'd won multi-award winning, one of the great photographers, one of the great sports photographers that's ever been around. And he had a look at my stuff and sort of took me under his wing and told me, you're a good photographer. You can be a really good photographer. And it was really his advice, his help and advice. And if I ever had any massive issue about my work, I would always call him or show him. And it's really him who's got me where I am, I think.
So, I mean, for anyone young maybe who's thinking about going into photography, or just keen photographers who want to maybe take it to the next level, how important is that, having a mentor or just having someone to look up to bounce ideas off?
I think it's essential. I think it really is to know someone who's actually been there and has done it, and can. You don't always have to go down a certain route. If you speak to someone with experience, they may not have gone to university. They may have gone to university. They might tell you what course to do. They might say, give you a bit of work experience, or even for a photographer. I've spoken to a lot of young photographers and looked at their portfolios and to try to put them in the right direction. So I think it's essential. I really do. And I think that's in any industry, certainly in creative industries. I think it's essential.
And what motivates you? You've said you've worked for Arsenal for 30 years. It generally now you've done it all at Arsenal. I mean, there'll be different games, different players, but generally you've done it all. But what motivates you every day in the morning? Don't say your little one, because that's a given.
I think it's the love. It's a football club that I love. It's a sport that I love, and photography, which is my passion. But it's also, I don't ever think that I've nailed it. So I keep trying. So I keep trying every game. I keep trying every photo shoot. I always look back and think, I could have done this. I could have done that. Next time I'll do this. Next time I'll do. So I think it's not saying that I'm failing, but always knowing you could do better. So, okay, we'll give it another go. And also with us, we have a massive turnaround of players and stuff. So you get to meet new people and interesting people all the time, develop relationships with people. So that is, you know, it's a lot of photographers say who work for agencies who cover different sports always say to me, "Oh, it must be really boring just doing one sport." And I'm like, no, you know, it's ever changing, really.
And for someone sort of young growing up, what tip would you give? What's that one tip, apart from the mentor side, but what's the one tip you would give to someone who potentially wants to go into the field?
Well, I would say never give up. I remember I went to a careers evening at school when I was 12 or 13, and they got in a local wedding photographer for my parents and me to speak to. And when I said I wanted to be a photographer, he just laughed at me and said, "Oh, you've got no chance. Photography is going to be dead in 5 years, you know." And that was it. And my mother wanted me to just throw it all in and go and work in a bank or follow my father into the police force. But I mean, really, it was just, I just loved it so much, and I thought, well, I'm going to prove people wrong. I'm going to get myself somewhere, and I just pestered people, photographers, to do a bit of work experience. And in the end, people just get so fed up with you phoning them, they open the door to you. So I would say just never give up. If you've got a passion and you don't follow it up, and then you know you're in your 50s and 60s, and you look back and you think, you know, you're always going to have regrets. So I didn't want to have regrets about not trying to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, so that kind of work experience is a big thing, I guess, for anyone watching. You know, get some work experience, contact people, cold call a little bit, and someone will let you in finally, and you'll probably be able to do something. Which is
it's essential, and especially in this industry, the hardest part of any sort of media and sports industry is getting your foot in the door. Once you're in the door, you can prove how good you are. The hardest thing is actually getting in there.
Yeah. And what's the dream for you, just finally? Well, I mean, you kind of said you've been here for 30 years, but it changes with players, with everything. But what's the dream for you? Is there anything you want to achieve? And it can be football, outside of football, it can be anything.
Achieve, I don't know. I want this pandemic over, and I want to see fans back in the ground. At the moment, my dream at the moment is to sit at a game at Emirates with 60,000 people watching a fantastic team, and watching Mikel celebrate us winning the league. You know, that's it. And then, because that's something that's amazing for me to photograph, you know, I'm here to record what the club does. And if they produce amazing stuff, then hopefully I'll be able to produce some amazing images that people can look back in sort of 40, 50 years time and say, wow, that's Stuart MacFarlane. He was quite good at his job, wasn't he?
I think that's a good dream. And I mean, I share that dream. I hope you fulfill that dream, because if you fulfill that dream, I'll be a very happy person as well, you know. So, I think, you know, we're maybe a little bit away from football, but hopefully once the pandemic is over and a vaccine's found, we'll be back in that ground and doing what we all love, I guess, and even going up and down the country. I mean, I do it as a fan, you do it as a photographer and a fan. There's no better feeling, is there, than kind of going up and down the country doing what you love.
The great, some of the most enjoyable trips are when we've won an away game and you get on the train on the way back and there's lots of fans on there, because you ultimately have to be professional, and that's the only time where I can sort of have a chat with friends of mine and stuff. So I've always loved that. I've always really enjoyed it. That's something that I really miss. Yeah,
cool. Right, Stuart, thank you for sort of the last 20, 25 minutes. I think hopefully it's been really helpful. It's, you know, the whole point of these is just to get people thinking, get people looking at kind of different industries, different motivations, how to deal with pressure. So I think, you know, your industry is one that is really interesting. I think we'll always grow as well. I think, you know, the person who told you when you were 12 years old that it's going to be dead in 5 years obviously was wrong, but it's just with digital technology, things just evolve, don't they? So I think that's most important. Yeah. So stay safe, look after your little one, look after your partner, and hopefully I'll see you at the Emirates soon.
Brilliant. Thank you. See ya.
Cheers.